Right. Sister Lila, just addressing some of the comments that have come through. Now, I know that the comments actually require a bit of in-depth discussion, but we'll do some brief responses for the benefits of the listeners. The first comment says, Assalamu alaikum. The rabbi singer is not being completely truthful about the existence of Jesus. His own book of authority, the Dangerous Talmud, mentions passages of reference to Jesus in derogatory terms and also refers to Mariam, the mother of Jesus, as well in derogatory terms that cannot be said on this or any radio station.
Yes, I think I might know what the listener is referring to. So if you go to the Pathways page, I'm going to add the response should be there in regards to that, because it's going to take me 5-10 minutes to respond to that, maybe even 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. So if you go to the Pathways page, and I'll have my response there.
All right. So that's Pathways at Women's Forum over on Facebook. If you'd like a link directly to the post, just send me a WhatsApp on 07861101112 and I will send you that link. All right. The second question says, Assalamu alaikum. What about the Gospel of Barnabas? It seems to threaten Christianity, and why do we have different versions of the Bible, i.e. containing certain Gospels only?
Again, go to the Pathways page because there's a lot to unpack there.
Yes, so the responses to these questions are quite long and they're quite detailed. So if you would like to view those responses, just send me a WhatsApp on 07861101112 and I will send you the links to those discussions. And then our final set of comments that come in, it says, Assalamu alaikum. I always say that you have to live with one to know one. By that I mean they appear to be so nice before marriage. Once married, oh my word, then they show their true colors.
It makes sense, but you see, with inshallah, when we finish with the orbit of Mariam alayhi salam, and then after we bridge over with Sarah and Hajj alayhi salam, we're going to go into the direction of Khadija.
Yes.
And then we are going to become more cultivated in our understanding of reading people and relationships. And so because, obviously it's haram for us to move in with people before we get married, but there are ways that we can learn and we can gain insight into people. And so there is leverage in that regard.
So our topic of discussion, as mentioned this morning, is the light of the Trinity, the dying star, and the cosmic womb. And not moon. I thought moon in the beginning. It's womb, W-O-M-B, as in the
uterus.
Reproductive organs,
yes.
Uterus. Right. So what's all this about then?
Okay, Lina? So we didn't get into the light of Trinity yet. We were still busy talking about the star. The dying star, because we actually were halfway through Surah An-Najm, which is entitled The Star. And before we discussed that, we were talking about Hollywood stars on the pathwalk. The celebrity is a star. We mentioned rock stars. We mentioned how stars are often used in occult, especially in symbolisms. You've got the upside down pentagram of the Satanists, and then you've got the pentagram of the Wiccans, and then you've got Aleister Crowley, who was the founder. He was from the Hermetic order, apparently, of the Freemasons, and then he founded the Thelema group, and then his expression was every man and woman is a star. Then you've also got Disney's To Wish Upon a Star. So that this theme keeps coming up.
Yes,
the use and misuse of the symbolism. And with Hollywood and Babylon, you've got the Babylon Tower on the stage with the Oscars and the little idols. So there's always these things keep coming up, and there's even like an actual Babylonian reference, like in wording at Hollywood and a lot of these functions. So there's a lot of inspiration being drawn there. And we spoke about the three idols because that came from the cliffhanger of a previous interview.
Yes.
The three idols.
Lat, Uzza and Manna, mentioned in Quran.
Yes, because if you do research, you'll find that that's linked to Babylonian times.
Yes.
And that's linked to the themes of the sun, the moon, and the star, Ishtar. Ibrahim alayhi salam in the Quran says, I will not worship the sun, the star, the moon, because they fade.
Yes.
You understand? So then but if you go into the Sumerian, the Babylonian and the Sumerian civilization, you'll find that these are constant themes. There's so many images because they've now found so much archaeological research. Like I saw one video of Numan Ali Khan mentioning it, but they found so many more and more they've got the sun, the moon, the stars, sun, moon, star, sun, moon, star. So the question is which star they're referring to, because it says Kawab. Is it Jupiter? Is it Venus? Is it a star? So what celestial body is being referred to here? Because it also took on different forms. So the Prophet Muhammad himself, he could not have known that these are being referenced or linked to that particular Trinity that was worshipped in the time of Ibrahim alayhi salam, who himself was basically getting away from that Trinity for the sake of actual pure monotheist worship. Okay, so that was very much a theme, and this we will discuss this more, inshallah, when we start going into Sarah and Hajar alayhi salam. We will go more into that, inshallah. Okay. So Najm, at first, there's reference to the fading star. The surah defends the Prophet Muhammad that he's not going with his whim or his fancy or as he wishes, because that is very much a theme with Thalima and these groups. Just do as you will, just do what you want. And the Quran defends the Prophet Muhammad saying, look, he's not just doing what he wants, he's not going on his whim. Okay, he is following an order from a higher authority. Then we didn't get to the part where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that he is the Lord of Sirius, which might be relating to Ishtar.
Okay.
The quote-unquote idol Ishtar. And then the significance of Sirius, the star, is that the Egyptians used to observe it before their floods. So what will happen is that in the northern hemisphere, Sirius becomes brighter because it has a solar rotation, and it seems to come closer to the Earth at a certain time of year.
Okay.
So they would actually mark their year according to Sirius, the dog star. Okay. And then what would happen is that they would have like a larger flood. So historically, some scholars say that you can actually locate, or you could consider, Musa alayhi salam in his basket in accordance to which time of year this would have been.
Okay.
You understand? Because the Nile would flood, and then the water would come down, and then but it would always coincide with the dog star Sirius.
Okay.
So the Egyptians had their own philosophy about Sirius and what it meant, relating to life and destruction. And I think it was also referred to the morning star because they would see it in the morning before the sun.
Okay.
And the reason why it's called the dog star is because it's in Canine Major. If memory serves me correct, it's on the nose of the dog. Okay. So there's a constellation that looks like a dog and it's on the nose. So it's called the dog star. Yeah. What's really interesting, but at the same time disturbing, is that the ancient Romans, they used to sacrifice a dog every year when they saw the dog, Sirius, the dog star, and they would sacrifice the dog with wine and incense. And after doing so much research on Roman imperialism, I'm kind of not surprised.
I wanted to say,
there's a consistency with them.
And these ancient civilizations were really something, eh?
Yeah. So what people didn't know and was discovered later, ironically, it was discovered by two women. They were called computers. That was their job titles. I've forgotten when was this? This was in between 1800 and 1900. There was two women that actually discovered that it's a binary star. So there's actually a dwarf star with Sirius.
Okay.
And so that binary star was a red giant, and then what happened was that it sheds its layers, and then it becomes like a white dwarf. So it's also known in Arabic. It's known as I made a note. It's known as Al-Shira and Al-Khabur because it's Sirius A and Sirius B. Okay. So it's a binary system of these two stars rotating.
All right.
Okay. So it's kind of like the Sirius A is twice the size of the sun. Sirius B it was the red giant, shed its layers, and then became the pup. Okay. The quote unquote pup. So the ancients believed, for example, like the Greeks believed that it would make you starstruck because it seemed to have an effect on men and women. Okay. And that's why in Greece the summer is called the dog days, because it becomes extra hot during that time. Because you would see it coincides with their summer in the northern hemisphere. Yes. In the summer hemisphere, it was apparently seen by the Polynesians. Like, do you remember Moana?
Yes.
And in the film, she's always like, they're always trying to look at the sky and the stars to figure, because like the Arabs would need the stars
to guide them. As a means
the Polynesians,
of navigation.
Yeah, the Polynesians are in the sea. There's nothing else around, but if you look at the sky, then you can use the stars for navigation. So the Polynesians were also quite perceptive regarding observing the stars. So it's also mentioned among the Polynesian lifestyle. So in Egypt, it was known as Sopdet, which means the Queen of Heaven, and this is how it ties in with, or how it came into an overlap with Mariam alayhi salam, because she was known as the Queen of Heaven. She was called the Queen of Heaven in the Sirius. And the whole mythology of the female idol inspired from that also was the Queen of Heaven. And then Mariam, in a sense, became this overlap incarnate of that. So there's an overlap there that you'll find if you do research online.
So Leila, let's just talk about this sort of overlap that you've mentioned now, because it's not the first time we see an overlap like this. Of course, when we were talking about Sayyidina Asya alayhi salam, there was this issue where there are elements of the ancient Egyptian beliefs which you find present within the Roman Empire, and here again you see it. You see the same set of stars being used in similar ways by different civilizations, by the Egyptians, by the Arabs, by the Polynesians. But this issue of confusing or this overlap between Sayyidina Mariam alayhi salam having the same status as an idol,
yes,
in the sense, how does something like this happen?
If you're looking at something in this natural sense and you're comparing it to her story and the consciousness evolving around her story, it's natural and understandable that people are going to, through inspiration, draw parallels poetically. It's understandable. For example, Nouman Ali Khan, he'll do a video on, you'll compare iPhones, he'll maybe talk about baseball. He's talking about things that are relevant and make sense to a modern American person or people around the world. He might even reference like a Pakistani village, and a Pakistani mommy behaves this way. So he will draw reference to things that are accessible to people that make sense to them, and then draw that parallel to something that is said in the Quran or an experience that somebody else is having within the context of a story. But people can make that distinction because he's explaining that distinction. So he's drawing a parallel but making a distinction at the same time. Whereas I believe that people in the old days, in ancient times, they would have these concepts, these ideas, they would draw these parallels, understandably, but because there's so much copy-pasting happening, the people don't research, people don't look into things scientifically, astronomically, mathematically, they just copy-paste until eventually you get this very fanatical, superficial view of religion that becomes dogmatic, pardon the pun. So it becomes dogmatic, and as a result, you can't have a more broad discussion of what things could possibly mean. So, for example, now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah An-Najm, he talks about the three idols, and it's interesting that he talks about the third idol, but specifies it as the third.
Yes.
I think it was Uzza is the third. And there is actually three parallels when it comes to the feminine or the maternal. We discussed last week the actual physical womb.
Yes.
The three veils of the womb. You get the amniotic fluid, you get the uterus wall, and then you get the abdominal wall. So those are the three veils of darkness that the Quran speaks of. Then you get three types of motherhood. You get the foster mother, which is what Hajjah alayhi salam was supposed to be, the foster mother. Then you get the nursing mother, which brings us back to Musa alayhi salam's mother, who's the biological and the nursing mother. Then you get the foster mother, so that reminds us of Asya alayhi salam. Then you get this concept, the Trinity in language. If you look at Arabic specifically, how things that give birth, things that carry, and things that partner tend to be referred to in the feminine. Okay. Yes, that's true. And there's things in nature that tend to. So it's kind of like a memory peg, but then unfortunately people take it a little too literally. The sun is referred to, Ashams is referred to as a she, but then people in the ancient times would actually start making out like the sun is an actual female, a personified being with its own intention, when it's actually a created being operating within its mechanical functioning. You understand? And then there's the initiations regarding the womb. Okay, for example, there's the virgin consciousness. If you are a virgin for a long time, you're going to cultivate a certain enlightenment that is non-verbalized, that is going to be internalized within yourself, that you can keep for the rest of your life, and inshallah be blessed for the rest of eternity. So even when you do get married, even when you do have children, there's a certain consciousness, there's a certain beautification and crystallization that comes with being a chaste woman, pre-marriage. Okay. And alhamdulillah, even when you get married, you don't lose that. You don't lose that reward. whatever you've cultivated in terms of sabr and virtue, you're not going to lose that. It just gets converted into another function within your marriage. Okay? Which is why, as old-fashioned and as 1950s as it sounds, good virgins make good wives. It basically just means that if you can be single, as in you can be contented by yourself, you're more likely to be a good partner in a relationship, because you're not going to be burdening your partner. You're not going to be like so desperate for attention. You're not going to be emotionally imbalanced and that sort of thing. So then there's the actual maternal consciousness of when you're a mother and you have babies. That is a whole nother initiation and rite of passage that a woman cultivates. And then you finally get to the postmenopausal phase, and you're going to have to speak to a woman who's gone through that to explain what that's, because that in itself comes with a certain wisdom and enlightenment. And these rites of passages, these initiations, all relate to the womb. The virgin, mother, quote unquote crone. I prefer using the term postmenopausal woman.
Yes.
It all relates to the womb. So that's actually a trichota. So a trichota is we spoke about Charmed. Remember the three sisters? I'm rolling my eyes as I say that.
Paige, Phoebe, and
the TV
Piper.
series called Charm, where they've got this trichota on their book of spells, and it looks like three leaves overlapping. What that actually is actually a Venn diagram. A Venn diagram is a couple of circles that have been drawn to overlap on top of each other.
Yes, and
so you find a lot of
intersectionality and all of those sort of things.
So you find it a lot in marketing and business.
Yes.
So if you want to, like, for example, if I want to target a certain avatar in business and marketing, I would write the qualities of the avatar, and then the circles would overlap. And so you find a lot of business people and marketers, they use these examples a lot, not because they're pagans worshipping symbols, but because it's an explanation. And that's what I'm drawing our attention to regarding our ancestry, is that a lot of time people are just explaining things, and then these things that they're explaining become symbols that get used and abused. So it's quite famous among the Celts, this trichota thing, because if you go, if you look it up, you'll find it is very common in Ireland on stones and in illustrations.
Yes.
And according to a Celtic scholar, it represents, besides the initiations of the womb, it's also relating to the first world, second world, third world of Abred, Anwen, and Gwynford. Abred is like the dunya, the worldly world. Anwen is like the energetic or psychic world. That's where you find the jinn. And the Gwynford is the Jannah. Jannah or Jahannam is like the other world.
Eternity.
Yes. Okay. So basically what has been explained in this article is that when the consciousness overlaps, you then get this white life in the center.
Okay.
Now, remember that every nation has had its prophet, so it's something to consider. Or what this person is saying is that the green world of Winford, which is very much, the scholar is describing it like Jannah. So it's this green light that overlaps and it creates a white light. Okay. So the reason that's significant, and I'm going to tell you why. But before I go into that, I just want to mention Saint Bridget of the Oak. She was a Druid that converted to Christianity, presumably or possibly Unitarian Christianity, and a lot of the intelligentsia of the Druids in Europe were the first people to convert to Christianity. They were already being persecuted by the pagans. I mean, the Romans.
Yes.
So the academia of the Druids were persecuted by imperialist Rome, and a lot of them became Christians, and the persecution continued.
Okay.
But there's a reason why they found Christianity attractive. Okay, according to books on Druidism, quite a few sources, they state that there were these natural pyramids that develop in all societies. So yes, you got the pharaonic system, you've got the system of the Babylonians, you've got the Roman system of the patriarchs and the plebeians. But if you look at tribal societies, like our local African and the Celts, they were basically, you'd have a tribal leader, you have a few people that are the learned, they have an understanding of natural sciences, of medicine and healing, as well as energetics or the spiritual world, and then you have the rest of the population. So it does kind of naturally form this natural social pyramid. That's not necessarily designed to oppress people. And then what happens is that there's a compounding effect. So that the learned people, if you get 5 learned people per tribe, 5 times 5 is 25. But if you get 100 unlearned people, then it's 100 times 100. Therefore, the difference between the learned and the unlearned expands.
And
that's why what happened was in the medieval ages, you had so many problems with illiteracy and people being uneducated and being filthy and having plagues and all sorts of violence. That's because that's what happens when you have a society of people that are not educated and who are unlearned. So that naturally happens, and therefore there has to be stronger efforts to make sure that the rest of the population are at least educated up to par or to a certain standard to prevent these societal issues. So what happened was that apparently the people that were the learned people, so they were the people that were interested in nature, natural sciences, healing, light, the universe, energetics. And so when the teachings of Isa alayhi salam came to them, it resonated with them.
Okay.
Especially if they have iman, especially if you have this feeling of like, I believe that there's one
Faith.
God.
Yeah.
And now here comes teachings that resonate to what I'm looking for and what I ascribe to. A lot of the Druids were very similar to how we would understand Afya healers.
Okay.
We've ever met Afya healers in our community. A lot of them they're very similar to Afya healers, very interested in healing and energy and that sort of thing. So, if you look at Isa alayhi salam from a Quranic perspective, and then if you reconcile the Unitarian perspective to that, then you can understand why, according to Druidic scholars, there was that attraction. Then it makes sense. Okay, so the more I research it, the more I think of Khidr. Remember Khidr? Yes, the green man.
The green man.
And the thing is, now you've got 3 males that are fatherless. So Isa, Khidr, and Adam.
Isa, Khidr, and Adam.
So there is one. There was
the
one
Trinity
triple.
Comes again.
There is a triple aspect there. Okay, so now let's talk about the actual Trinity of Light. Is it actually a thing? Okay. Isaac Newton, who I actually thought people online have said that he's an atheist. Turns out it's not true. I actually found out very recently that he was an anti-Trinitarian monotheist.
Okay.
And they found a lot of theological notes. Now, somebody made a comment about the Gospel of Barnabas.
Yes.
According to Wikipedia, Sir Isaac Newton was a follower of the quote-unquote loser Arius.
Okay.
So he sided with Arius. So he was a Unitarian Christian, to sum it up. They try to say that he's a Freemason. Honestly, I haven't found a lot of evidence of that. But I don't know his best. So it was Isaac Newton that got a prism, and then from the prism he refracted the white light, the natural light, and he got the rainbow effect.
Yes.
So he split the white light and got different rainbows. So from there's the discovery of the 3 lights within the white light: blue light, red light, and a green light.
RGB.
Yes. So if you take these 3 lights, spotlights, you put a blue light and a red light and they overlap. Okay, then you get like a magenta. Then if you take a green light, and this is a literal triquetra. Yes. This is a literal vein that becomes a triquetra. Then you literally have the white light in the middle.
Yes.
So when the cults were talking about the white light, like, no, there is actually a white light. It's a scientific thing.
Yes.
So we do have this white light that we see from the sun, or that we get from the sun. Is this actually is the component of the green light within it that's overlapping the blue and the red light.
And then,
to make it white light so that we can actually see what we're doing and not be surrounded by magenta.
Which is also why we view the sky as being blue. The sky is not actually blue, it's refracted light. The sky is actually black.
Yeah, it makes sense. But you know what's even more interesting? Remember the Shams? It's also a dying star. Well, it's an aging star that's going to die.
Yes.
Okay. And what's interesting about that, because if you look at Surah At-Tawheed, it talks about the sun. Now, what I was told is that the sun, it rotates on its axis and then it stops rotating. So At-Tawheed is kind of like, with the VHS, if you rewind your tape stops rewinding or stops fast forwarding.
Yes.
So I was taught or understood it as that the sun is on its axis, it turns and then it stops turning, and then you get this cause and effect that makes a lot of sense within that particular surah. So what scientists explain is that the core of the sun has a certain amount of hydrogen that keeps it going. And then what happens is that it's going to run out. Okay, because this has happened to all the suns, like the dwarf star, the puppy of Sirius B. So what happens is that it will run out of hydrogen, and then it kind of bellows up. So now if you go back to the dictionary of Kawir, it's kind of like, it talks about bellowing or rotating. So it's like, when people blowing glass and you get this like this big, large red ball developing, rotating from the glass blowing. So that's actually going to happen with the sun, where it actually gets bigger to the point where it's like it bellows up and then absorbs Mars and Venus, and it'll get close enough to the Earth where you really will see Jahannam. Okay. Then the waters, like everything else about that story makes sense, with the waters exploding up and the oceans become like fire, and all of that happens. And then what's interesting is that there's a reference to the baby girl being brought back to life, and the soul is reunited with its body, and then the baby girl will be asked as to what crime did she commit, that she was executed. And I always wondered about that, like why is that verse there? Because it almost seems like it'd be a change of, because you're talking about a scientific phenomenon, that a cause and effect, and everything else about it makes sense. Now you're talking about the baby girl. And what's interesting to me is that, today when we're dealing with abortion, a lot of people promote abortion on the basis that it'll help climate change, because we human beings,
you reduce the population so that there's not that much strain on the environment.
Exactly. So there's all these population health clinics throughout especially third world countries, where there's even less carbon footprint than the first world countries, ironically, with the justification that it'll reduce the global warming, which is happening anyway, because the sun is getting brighter and hotter anyway, because that is the natural effect of the sun before it dies. It's going to go through, it's an aging sun. It's therefore going to get hot. It's going to get brighter. So you're going to get global warming. Yes. But now what's interesting is that people will say, okay, we must have abortions, or we must reduce the population through abortions, because that'll save the earth. Okay, and now you've got this surah saying that actually the earth is going to go through what it's going to go through anyway, regardless, and then brings up the baby girl that's going to be questioned for what crime did she commit, that she was executed. Because if any imam or sheikh wants to talk about abortion, he's naturally going to reference that part in history. When the Jahiliyyah killed their daughters in favor of sons. Yes, which is happening now with certain politicians actually advocating late-term abortions to the point where the child can actually be born, and then they'll actually consider executing the child. I've seen a video clip of a American politician saying that,
advocating for late-term abortion
to the point where the baby can be born and then executed. Yes, taking it that far.
Okay, that is disturbing.
So
extremely.
Anyhow, getting back to the light, the light of the sun. So I just thought it'd be interesting to know, because the sun is the so central to our seasons, our life. They found, first of all, there was the light bulb experiment. So they found that with the lack of sun, you can use different light bulbs like blue and red. And then they did experiments, and they found that the red light for plants made the plants more stretchy and long, but the blue kind of made it more shrunk and more dense. So they found that the green light actually balances it out, and at the same time it creates the white light that you can actually see the plants and what's happening with your plants.
Yes.
Okay, so the green light is a balancing light. So that was the effect of plants. So you can actually go find all these effects. So the blue light has an effect on the plant cells. It's known to reduce the plant cells. The red light expands the plant cells.
Yes.
But it also has an effect on our skin, because you can get blue light, red light, and green light therapy.
Yes.
So you get blue light therapy for acne, you get red light therapy for wrinkles, and you get green light therapy for, like, if somebody has discoloration. Okay. The pigments, if you got too much pigment in one area. So what the green light does is that it balances out.
It balances
It's very poetic, you know.
The things that we've been able to discover.
Yeah. So there is an actual literal triquetra in regards to light. There is a scientific basis to it. So now you can empathize with somebody like Isaac Newton, who's trying to reconcile his religious belief with math, science, and astronomy. So light from the sun, it gives us our ability to see, which can be likened to enlightenment. It gives us our provision, our fruits in season, so to speak. It gives us our energy and life, warmth and energy. It gives us healing. It alleviates flu. In winter when you're sick, and then when it's a bit sunnier, you find that your cold or your flu gets a little bit better as a result of the warmth. And it also literally gives us medication, because it affects the herbs and the plants that give us our medicine. So people in ancient times could see all these connections.
Okay.
It's like this Tawheed of all these systems working together.
Because they didn't have pharmaceutical companies.
They didn't have pharmaceutical companies. They had nature.
Yes.
And they had all these systems within nature. So before we get this trichota, this overlap, we get, geometrically speaking, we get this thing called a vesica Pisces.
Vesica Pisces.
Vesica Pisces.
Again, the Pisces.
Yes. You know why it's called a Pisces? Because it's a little fish.
A fish.
It's a fish. And how do you get the vesica Pisces? You have to draw 2 circles. So imagine you had a chalkboard with chalk and you draw 2 circles. So I'm actually going to draw it for you.
Okay.
For those listening, you're just going to have to Google it.
The visual aids.
So here we go. So here's 2 circles drawn on top of each other. I'll just draw it separately so you can see what it looks like. So that's the little the vesica Pisces.
Okay.
You see?
It's so like a very rudimental fish.
Yeah. So you two circles overlapping, and then what you do is you just rub away the 2 circles so that you get a little tail on the fish. Okay, so that's the body of the fish. So it's a symbol in Christianity. I'm not sure what culture it came with, because see, the Egyptians used it a lot in their geometry, but they haven't been able to find research and notes of them being aware of it. They might have done it intuitively. So if you look at like the Sphinx and the pyramids of Giza, you see a lot of vesica Pisces geometry overlapping. So they seem to use it, but they might have been, they haven't found notes confirming that they were deliberately doing that. Okay, they probably were, because how else would they get such a like perfect alignment? And so with Christianity, I think it probably became a symbol because it's synonymous with Jesus and the fishermen, the multiplication of the fishes. For example, there's the story of the bread and the fish, and then the bread and the fish increased. And then there's the other story about the fishermen on the boat, and then he told them, throw your net on the other side, and they got more fish. Which there's a moral of that, is that, look, you always have provision. It's just a question of where do you find it. Like God's not denying you anything. You just need to know where to find the provision that's already assigned for you. You see. So that shape in the middle, once you rub the 2 circles where you get it's called a mandorla. It's Italian. It means an almond. Another thing that it looks like that's very interesting is a date seed. So it looks like a seed. It looks like a lot of seeds. The people that are pro-Darwinism, they like to make fun of the Christians by writing Darwin in the middle, and they put little legs on the fish to indicate or represent the theory that the fish grew legs and then turned into some sort of mammal that then later turned into whatever. Like all of that stuff. And so you'll find in the cartoon on Cartoon Network, it's The Amazing World of Gumball. One of the characters is called Darwin, and it's a fish with legs. Now, heavy sigh. So... yeah. So look, besides crop circles and the pyramids and sphinxes of Giza, you get the Masonic architecture of the Vatican and Washington, except that they put an Egyptian obelisk in the center of the mandorla. Because the mandorla also represents the cosmic womb. You understand? Because it looks like that thing, which I'm not going to say on air, but it looks like the thing that is relating to birth. And so they put an Egyptian obelisk in the middle, which is very phallic, to represent the male parts and the female parts coming together for creation. There is an ex-Freemason. He says that, look, basically it is according to him, he says it's a sex cult. And so the male parts and the female parts come together for creation. And he said that, because while I was looking into, I come across Freemasonry by accident all the time because of the geometry and the architecture. And I end up reading a lot of articles written by Freemasons. And I think to myself, but like, how can you possibly be this focused on geometry and not believe in Allah? How can you look at architecture and interior design and all of these things and not be a believer? And look, apparently they're very different. Like at different lodges, different groups. And so this ex-Mason, according to his experience, he says that there's basically a conspiracy to create atheism, because by doing so you can manipulate and control people more easily.
That's true.
Makes sense. From a business perspective, it makes sense. And so he says that basically the atheist is laughing at the Christian, but the Freemason is laughing at the atheist. Having said that, though, another Freemason said, we're too busy fighting with our air conditioner to take over the world. And that statement also makes sense, because at the end of the day, you're just dealing with people. You understand? Okay, but the idea that people are being kept from the higher truth.
Yes, which is ultimately
no matter who
belief
you blame,
in
no matter
God,
who you
yeah.
blame, that is definitely a theme. It's definitely a theme in society. There's the atheist, the Penn and Teller, they had this series, and so they directed and produced a film called Tim's Veneer. Now, Tim is not an artist; he's a scientist, and he used optical equipment to replicate a masterpiece done by Vermeer. And so this guy literally used science, pure science, maths, geometry to create this painting. Okay, so it's worth looking up. Now, the atheist, Penn, says, I don't understand why we don't learn these things at school, why we don't have this overlap of like art and science and maths in school. So you learn art as a separate subject.
Yes.
You learn maths as a separate subject, but you don't learn them at the same time. Like
and arts are always deemed to be lower
Yes.
than the intellectual, quote-unquote, subjects like mathematics and physics and chemistry.
If you look at Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo, these are all scientists, these are all mathematicians, these are all geometrists. They all use maths, they all use geometry.
They were
so the question is,
as well.
yes, it all connects. You can't do one without the other. Well, I mean, for me personally, I understood geometry better through art, and of course, it improves art because it helps you to locate things because there is geometry in everything in creation.
Yes.
So obviously, you're going to cultivate the sense of creation, therefore creator, but then it goes further than that. It goes deeper than that. And then everything that you see and everything that you work with becomes like a form of dhikr. So like Leonardo da Vinci was another one that they try to make him out to be an atheist. You know, oh, he's so enlightened and he doesn't believe in God or religion. That's not true. One of his last statements was referring to God.
Yeah.
You understand? So it's very difficult for a person to be constantly engaging in cosmic and sacred geometry and not have at least a sense of monotheism.
Yes.
One created Tawheed, basically. So interestingly enough, this man who's an atheist, and I understand his irritation with people trying to preach to him and push on him, but he says, like, I don't understand why there's this, like, segregation in the school system. And I'm thinking at the back of my head, well, it's to create atheists like yourself. So that intelligent people like yourself can't connect the dots.
Yeah.
You understand?
Because
you're looking at everything separately.
representation,
You're looking at everything separately. You're not looking at it all together as one complete, constant, thriving system. So, you know, besides if you look at, I mentioned the eyebrows and the eyes, like the length of your eyebrows is the length of your ears, the width of your mouth, the length of your nose. I call that the long measurement. Apparently that's a golden ratio. So your eyes and your eyebrows, oh boy, golden ratio. That's something that people I'm going to have to do a separate thing on that.
Okay.
Basically, the golden ratio mathematically, there's a formula that I don't have time to get into. But there's a mathematical formula that you'll see in shells, the universe, the Milky Way, people's faces, the fetus and the embryo. Yes. You see it in flowers. You see it in the way that the seeds in the sunflower seed, in the sunflower, in the center of the sunflower spiral.
Yes.
So there's a golden ratio like everywhere. But then there's also, the golden ratio is also 1 to 1.6. So there's measurements of 1 to 1.6.
This is the Fibonacci sequence.
Yes. The
Fibonacci.
mathematically is the Fibonacci sequence.
Yes.
But that leads to the golden ratio in terms of geometry.
Okay.
So what happens is your eye might be of a certain measurement. Your eyebrow would therefore be the same measurement times 1.6.
Yes. 1.618.
Yes, that's right. So that's the golden ratio that you find. And then what somebody also pointed out, so your whole body has the golden ratio from your torso and your legs and then your fingers and your hands and your arms and all of that. So what's interesting to notice that you've got this golden ratio. And then you also have the two circles that create the Vesica Pisces, or to create that overlap of the mandora, that also exists on top of that. Okay. So as you're looking at someone's face, you can actually have all these various geometric shapes and patterns overlapping on top of each other.
Yeah.
You understand? So again, how do you not believe in a creator when there's just way too many, not just there's not just a lot of mathematical algorithms in nature and in creation, but there's so many overlapping on top of each other. So if I had to draw your face, if I had to take a picture of your face and draw the two circles relating to that Vesica Pisces, then I draw the golden ratio as well. Your whole face the picture of your face would just be completely covered.
Okay.
There would just be layers, like I wouldn't be able to see your face left because there's all this geometrical shaping overlapping on top of each other. So now what's interesting also about the Vesica Pisces is that it relates to the cells. You understand? Because we said it looks like a seed.
Yes.
And it also relates to the cells because what happens is the cells, they double and they quadruple and then they multiply. And again, that is relating to creation. Rather than the other the theory of everything kind of just evolves naturally by itself.
Okay, so we'll have to leave our discussion at that point. I've just done a quick Google search. So as we mentioned, the golden ratio is 1.618.
So it's in a regular number.
An irregular number.
Yes.
And I also mentioned the Fibonacci sequence. So what actually happens is the Fibonacci sequence.
It's like 1 plus 1 is 2, then 2 plus 1 is 3, and then 3 plus 2 is 5, and then 5 plus
essentially
is
the
8,
Fibonacci sequence works towards the golden ratio.
Yes.
So the numbers, the Fibonacci sequence runs towards the golden ratio, and that is the relationship between the two of them. And then, of course, there's so much more. I mean, this is an entire, program on its own, but it's worth looking into. A nice little Google search will get you all of the information that you need. So we'll leave our discussion at this point.